All right, welcome back to another episode of Remote Voices. We have a really awesome guest today. It's Darren from Work From. Darren, introduce yourself. Tell us what you guys do. Give us kind of the elevator pitch.
Very excited all week to be on. So here we are. It's big time. I've made it here with the Yak Gang, I like to call it. So work from is it's really a remote work super connector. Our goal is to help people and teams build better networks remotely, but our origins come from helping people find places to work remotely. And through that, we have built one of the largest remote work communities in the world. We have over 120,000 people who have joined our community to help people find the best places to work all over the world, as well as their people that work at these places. Ultimately, we've been connecting people around remote work and their work style and the ways that they most need, the things that matter most to them for many years. And we have recently evolved to make that more front and center. And
Yeah, so
we've kind of
you've
moved.
had some pivots lately because of the coronavirus, eh? I don't know if you want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, like every business, I believe at this point, we are also affected by what's going on around us, and the global pandemic has affected excuse me, some of the things that we had been doing in very specific ways. For instance, places has always been a really important part of our ecosystem, where people work, the information around the places that they work, when they're going there, who else goes there. All these things mattered a lot.
Mm.
And during a pandemic, people are working from home. It's not so relevant anymore, the places that we have been sourcing all around the world in the same ways. And so what we realized is that for us, it really was a time for us to accelerate what we had already been planning to do, which was bring more of the connectivity between individuals and through teams and individuals and teams to teams. So bring more of the people connections to the forefront. I like to say we sort of have evolved from internet connections to personal connections, and it was a natural evolution for us.
And you guys are doing that in Slack, right? Like you have a pretty large Slack community that you're talking to these folks in every day.
Yeah, we have a very big Slack community, and these are folks who have been some of our most amazing community members, if you will. Folks who have already opted into more networking, more access, more recommendations. All the culture and the fun stuff that we've been creating over the years. Really direct access to that in Slack, and that has actually evolved kind of separately in some ways from our community platform. Finding what we call sort of space discovery. They are not divorced from one another, but that they have evolved separately. One is very much a utilitarian tool. All right, it's a thing that people use to discover information specifically to a certain use case, and the other is more of a day in day out experience of connecting with people and around the things that matter most.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think Hunter recently got you guys in Yak as well, right? And you're using that to kind of talk, inside of the community.
Yeah, it's been a great tool.
That's awesome.
We're all about connecting folks, and Yak has been a fantastic way to do that.
We love to see
as,
that.
well, as remote first, company and people and community, we're always looking for opportunities to communicate better. And one of the things that we've learned about Slack is in our Slack community and the communication that happens there is that it's a certain type of communication. It's very temporal.
Mm.
It's not very asynchronous. It's you kind of sort of have to be there and be aware in the moment, right? And so with Yak and this sort of asynchronous audio opportunity, as well as some other awesome things that you're able to do with Yak, but the audio, especially like the async nature of the audio, is really something that we can take advantage of, and it allows our community to communicate in ways that were otherwise difficult.
Yeah, I imagine it's great for kind of those personal connections, especially now when we're not able to get out of the house as much and we're all cooped up inside. I mean, we asked you when you got on today where you at? You're like, well, I'm working from home. We're all working
That's
from
right.
home right now. So, being able to connect with other people, I think is insanely important. Well, I have not looked at the content for today, so
You'll
I have
love it.
no idea.
Exciting.
It looks like we're starting
That's
off
good.
right off the bat
Darren, we're going to
with
bring you up to speed.
this
Yeah, please.
viral phenomenon that you apparently missed out on, which, to be honest, I don't think you really missed out on much. I don't know, Jordan, you're the most cultured of all of us. Do you want to give us the breakdown on what's going on here with this? I don't even know. I
Yeah.
can't. It's an audio show. I'm supposed to read this out, but it's emojis. So I don't know. Just take
Yeah.
it from the top.
I won't read the tweet, but basically for the people listening on audio only, we're discussing the "is what it is" meme. So it's the eye emoji with the lips followed by the other eye. And this started as a trend on TikTok. Probably it started becoming a thing like a year ago, but really took off in the last couple of months. And now a group of folks have decided to make this a product or turn it into a mobile app. So
Is it a mobile app though? Do we know?
Well, that's
for
what we
sure
don't
if there's an
know.
app
That's what we
involved?
don't know. I think I've seen some screenshots of test flight builds on people's phones.
I think it's fake, man. I think it's
Hmm.
all fake. I think Tyler, our investor, tweeted this out yesterday. I put Hunter on the thread that at this point in time, the invite only FOMO, you could just basically build a membership or like a invite only portal
Yeah.
for anything, and it doesn't even have to be real.
Just hype
People
it
will
up.
be afraid that they're missing out on
Oh,
something.
for sure. That's for sure possible.
And Darren, do you guys? How do
So-
you guys drive that FOMO in your group? You know, is that something that that membership? I saw a really cool tweet yesterday that was like something about the difference between like membership and subscription, right? Like one is this personal connection. Why do you guys have invite only? Can anybody join work from? How do you guys do it?
Yeah, yes, anybody can join work from, and we've always been that. We've always had an experience that anybody could access, and we've also had experiences that not anybody can access. That you have to either opt in, pay for, have some sort of an invitation to it. One of the ways that we've often do it or done in the past is by inviting people based on contributions in the community. Since we started as a crowdsourced experience, an experience that people would have to contribute in order for it to grow. That meant that there would be people that would contribute more than others. And for that, we would reward them. We would invite them to other experiences. And we felt that was not only a great way to, sort of welcome and grow an amazing community, but also a great way to, an appropriate way to reward that activity of folks taking the time to do things that aren't always easy, right? Everybody's busy, and to spend your time, contributing to something is something that we wanted to reward. So we've approached it that way. In the last few months, I thought a lot about, what could we do to create more of a invitation only kind of experience for those who have been a part of what we've been doing for so long, and how do we get them into something, all the new things in that way. And it's hard. It's not a straight line. I think we don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it, which maybe this is what this is, and we just sort of talked about, right? We don't want to do it just for that, but at the same time, there's so much that you can, there's so much that you can learn, as well as so much sort of like intimacy that you can get with a community when it's a smaller group, when it's a group that's highly engaged. Yeah. I know you folks know that very well.
Hunter says the same thing all the time. I don't know, Hunter, if you want to talk about that group that we've spun up in Yak.
Yeah, so I this is sort of like an invite only thing, but I opened it up to our public Twitter, is like just creating external groups within Yak. And that's really why I invited you, Darren, and part of your team, is because I think it's really important to start off, if you're going to do exclusive things like what we're talking about now, it has to start off small, because you have to grow organically. It's like any sort of like friend group, right? You don't just invite everybody to the school to your house. Like you start off with like one or two friends, and then they kind of just organically grows. It really reaches a critical mass where it just can't grow any further. It just becomes unmanageable. And so that's really what I tried to replicate at Yak is, okay, well, maybe you're having a hard time figuring out the mechanics of our app, or maybe you're not, maybe you can't get your whole team on right away, but you can still get the benefits because now you can invite your small group. And so I've sort of started these conversations. In fact, I have 3 separate groups that we're experimenting with, which is one of them in which that you're in. But it's just really interesting seeing the conversations that are coming out of it. People, yesterday in the Ross group, the remote as a service group, someone was asking for hiring advice. And like, that's a perfect channel to have that. So I was actually just talking with KP over at Cuppa yesterday. We were going back and forth on Twitter about all the benefits of having something closed group. You can get some really good feedback, and you're not asking like the world for feedback. You're not trying to boil the ocean. You're just getting really concise feedback from a few people that you can build the core features for. So I'm pretty big on this. I just honestly, I hate this meme now. I thought it was hilarious like 2 days ago, and now I hate it.
Yep.
Well, it's because it's made Twitter like literally unusable. Like you can't do anything without seeing this now, which it's credit to them, right? Like, good job on the virality aspect. I mean, if we read the actual tweet, it says, if there's no actual app and it's merely a call to further spread design Twitter's inside joke, it just proves the marketing savvy of the illusionists and our collective thirst for novelty. And I think that, I don't know that novelty is the thirst. I think there's a thirst for community. I think especially right now, so many people are just clamoring to feel like they're a part of something, because it's so difficult to be a part of something when you're working from home. And so I think that's why it's really cool what Work From is doing, because it really is the future of community building, where you have to build a community away from a community kind of individually and figure out how you can join from afar, especially in this day and age. You know, Darren, I was saying when we got on, like 9,000 new cases in Florida in one day. They're going to shut stuff down again, right? We're going to go right back to the fact that we can't go to the malls. We should have been going anyway, but we can't go outside. You know, you can't go fraternize with friends and stuff like that. And communities like Work From, and hopefully what we're building on Yak as well, are going to be just so insanely important, I think, to mental health. Like, just, you know, like
there's no doubt about it.
There's a collective thirst for being involved in something.
Like you're spot on. Community it's one of the innate things about all of us have. We need community. We're very social. Even if we consider ourselves introvert, extrovert, somewhere on that, we still are innately social. Right? So much of our communication, so much of our understanding of the world comes through our interactions with others. And if you look at remote work sort of as a category, and you compare that to what we've seen if we're in office work, or when people are co-located, if you will. We've been doing that for 150 plus years, and we've created this entire culture and entire ecosystem around it. Remote, it removes the physical proximity, and when you are not physically located next to somebody, it does in many ways sort of challenge your ability to use what is innate to you as a human, the social social cues, the understanding of us in the world through these social interactions. And so we have to evolve. We just got to think of new ways to address that. It's not a good or bad. I think it's just we need to do what we always do, which is adapt. And so we're in a really golden age, I think, right now with so many people feeling these disconnects. Like we all get to explore it. We all get to create amazing things to help contribute to that getting better, the betterment for everybody. And there's tons of room for it, because again, we all need it. There's not one flavor that everybody needs. It's all kinds of flavors. So we just have to figure out how to build these new networks, and people networks are the most important thing we have.
The last thing I'll add to that is, before this, I was actually remotely attending BetaWorks Render Conference, and loneliness was one of the topics. And the lady speaking on it said, loneliness in the U.S. is actually reported at an all-time high right now. It's the highest it's ever been in the U.S. So it's weird that like now we're on this podcast, right, and we're talking about the need for these communities and such. So it's crazy that like there's literally a need for these communities, and people need to feel belonging now, literally more than ever. It's not just people saying, "Oh, we need this." It's like, no, we literally need this more than before.
How does one get reported stats on loneliness?
I have no idea. That's what she studies. I'm not.
Well,
interesting.
We've been a student of people for a while. I mean, I think broadly, but specifically through the lens of remote work. And every time we've studied, every time we've looked at, every time we've asked anybody, every time we create a survey, every time we've had a one-on-one, loneliness, isolation, some variation of that is always top, right? It's always top 2, top 3. It's at this point, it's a fact that people are feeling disconnected from a number of things, but disconnected when they're working full time this way. And that's something we got to fix, like something that we have to address. It's not something that we want to just leave up to the people who adjust the fastest, right? We need to be thinking about building new infrastructure to make this work for everybody, because ultimately the gains that come from working this way are far reaching, and we all benefit. We really get to craft our work around our lives, which is key. You flip it around and you become very unhappy. Unhappiness, loneliness, like these are things, this is a recipe for disaster. So we've got to figure that out.
Definitely. Yeah, I see loneliness listed. It's like whenever anybody does those like state of remote work things,
It's always
Loneliness
there.
and isolation, always listed towards the top as like the number one concerns with remote work. So this next tweet says, iOS 14 comes with support for sound recognition and accessibility. Now, we saw a little bit of this in DubDub. Darren, did you catch WWDC? Did you watch the keynote?
I caught a little bit of it. I haven't caught all of it. Again, something I plan to do this weekend. I was just telling you before we came live that I've been heads down, kind of under a rock for the last 2 weeks. I've been working on some really important stuff, and so I just haven't had a chance to check it out. But I actually learned about some of this specifically, and some of the other cool things that have happened through the RAS group, through the YAG group. So yeah. So like Signal, high Signal.
Did you see the hand washing? So what this is they added hand washing as a like alert timer thing on Apple Watch. So it will tell you how long, like it basically will vibrate in intervals to let you know like you need to keep washing
for the
your
20
hands,
seconds.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what that rolled into at a technical level is now you can actually go into the accessibility settings and you turned on sound recognition. So things like a baby crying, a smoke alarm, water running, and it will notify you. I think this is super cool. I mean, especially for us like audio nerds, everybody, we're obviously bullish on voice and audio as a platform.
Sure.
But I think this is so cool that in the future you could have like triggered, I don't know, imagine like a if this then that trigger that happens on like specific sounds happening in your environment, happening around you. Our phones are just getting so much smarter. I don't know, Hunter, do you have an application here? Like, what's an example of something cool you think will come out of this?
I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Marquise Brownlee, MKMD or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, you sort of said his name.
Whatever. He said he said it was like if you're playing video games and like the doorbell rings to get pizza, right? Like it'll let you know, which is really nice because I play video games too, and I have like the nice headset now. That's like the most first world problem to ever have, but it is cool. Yeah. I like it. What I really do like it though is for the inclusivity. It's he came back from the studio and literally his entire phone was like the water is running, and like literally like hundreds of notifications that the water was running. Wow. So I don't know how accurate it is, but if it delivers its promise, I think it's going to be really cool, especially for us that are trying to build the future of work. So if us as a company, at Yak, if we're expecting people to have their headphones in all day and they're locked in, that's going to unlock even more opportunities. Like, if it recognizes the name, like Jordan's, behind you, he's trying to talk to you, right? Like that's instant for me. That's a nice, like, okay, I can actually
tell me
now look at him
behind you. He's snuck up behind you.
He's breathing on your neck.
Immediately, I think what's really cool about this is I see the application for elderly folks.
Yes, accessibility.
Especially like my own grandpa, because he's got a hard time hearing. If the smoke alarm's going off and he can't hear that, but his phone can help him detect that. Obviously, it's critical information that he needs to know ASAP, or any other similar scenario. So from that perspective, I'm a huge fan of this. And then like Hunter, you said, the capabilities of what this might unlock for Yak is also really cool for us. But I think the immediate accessibility use case is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's exactly where my mind went to initially too, was accessibility and the power that could, unlock for a lot of people, and the safety, the peace of mind. I mean, that's so important. I also went immediately to, I think it was yesterday. I was sitting in one room playing with my young son, and I had the phone in the other room, but I had my AirPods in, and I was like, God, what time is it? Like, for some reason, I didn't have any clock, so I asked Siri, what time is it? And heard in my ear, and it's something about having the phone in the other room but still being connected in that way, being able to prompt it. Like it hit me suddenly that there is an opportunity to have technology that is aware in other places nearby that can help you understand certain things or interact in certain ways. Because my phone is mostly with me all the time, I hadn't really experienced that quite the same, and it just hit me. I thought, wow, this could be an interesting thing where I could leave the phone in a room intentionally, and leave the room and feel confident somehow I'll still be aware of something that's happening in that room. And as a parent, that's one of the things I could think about. Yeah,
Hunter talks a lot about just like what life will be like when we don't have mice and keyboards, and where there's another input method, and there's.
Are we gonna get there, Hunter? I'm waiting. I'm like.
We're already there, man.
Get there.
You're on Yak RAS,
that's a good point.
Man. You're already there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not typing anything in Yak, so we're trying to be at the forefront of that. But it is interesting to think about with AR glasses and all of that. You know, the ability to have these extra sensors and have that computer on your face that'll tell you when certain things it detects, like smoke alarms, you know, water running, you left a sink on, you left the stove on. You know, I don't know. There's some cool applications there for sure. This next tweet says, what is advice really? How does it differ from insight? And you know what he's talking about here is in relation to like giving feedback on pitches. You know, I know these guys know, I don't know, Darren, if you caught the tweet, but I built pitch at hey.com as my hey address when the email juggernaut released, and basically said,
Nice.
hey, send me a pitch. If you got a pitch deck and you're trying to raise and you don't feel like you're having much success, I'll give you feedback on it. And I sympathize with this tweet a lot for sure, because I'm obviously giving my unique perspective on these pitch decks. I'm giving them ideas of like, you know, what I think they should do. And I do think it's interesting to ask, like, at the end of the day, like, what is advice? Can you give advice without it, you know, is impartial advice even possible?
Yeah, is it objective?
Yeah,
Sure.
like, what do you think, Darren?
Well, sure. I think it's possible for there to be nuance. I mean, I think objective advice. Like you can bring in experience, history. You can bring in data. If you've looked at X amount of pitch decks, or you've created X amount of pitch decks, or whatever it is, at some point you understand that there are some common truths, right? There are some patterns that can be pretty much relied on, and so I think you could then say, like, this is objective advice. You know, having this much content on one slide is generally bad, right? Like, I feel like that works.
Yeah.
But it's a thin line between objective and subjective, and so much of the interpretation people have on what they, when they're giving advice is so personal, is so unique to their experience. So I think you got to take advice with a grain of salt, but you also have to understand who's giving it. And if you can understand, where they come from, then I think that advice actually even has more color. You get more impact out of it.
Darren. Go ahead. Actually, I got a question for you, Darren. Because I was talking to Brooke not too long ago. Yeah, right. I was talking to Brooke, and she was saying how, like, you guys just got out of Techstars, and you guys are just pummeled with advice. I mean, that's one of the value props of Techstars, is that they give you the advice and they put you in the room with the right people. But I know that you guys are getting hundreds of pieces of advice a week. So my question to you is thousands. So my question to you is, how are you able to decipher the difference between advice and insight, and who you should listen to?
Yeah, I'll tell you the way I do it.
Without naming names.
We name names too. I mean, we work with some amazing folks. It is one of the things that Techstars, says is their value prop, and I agree it is. You have an amazing network. You end up being exposed and you're able to get advice, get understanding, get learning from people who have seen the movie before, and these are brilliant people. You'd be a fool not to listen to it, not to process it. The way I handle it is I look for trends. I look for patterns. My mind is just sort of primed to be that way, and it's something that I rely on in so many ways. So many things in life. When there's a lot of information coming at you, or when there's a lot of information to be had, if you can find some commonalities, some patterns, then it helps you understand, what's the middle and what's the edges. So what we would experience through Techstars, what we had experienced was a lot of advice, but you saw trends, and there were certainly trends, and so I would pay attention to those trends, and then I'd try to dig deeper, or I'd try to disprove those or prove them. All right, so you build hypotheses around them. But that's I think a really solid way to do it. But if you just listen to the advice from so many different people, it's just so much input. You end up what they call whiplash. They in many ways they call it mentor whiplash, but because this often happens with your mentors. But they call it whiplash, because you'll get off of one, out of one conversation and into another, and literally they say something that's diametrically opposed. And they're both brilliant people, and you both respect them both. They both done a lot. It's really hard, but it also then shows you that, and I hope that I don't offend anybody, but nobody knows what they're fucking doing. I mean, we're all figuring this out, as like in real time. Now we bring a lot to the table of our experiences, but nobody really knows how to do it for you,
and
right?
Unfortunately, luck has a lot to do with it too. So even
luck has a lot to do with it.
Advice just might be that they got lucky,
luck is a big part of it. Timing is a big part of it. Network is a big part of it. Grit. Just being able to last long enough. That's a big part of it. Whether like shots on goal, right? Like just having enough shots on, you're going to get one through, and so there's a lot that goes into it, and people don't have all the answers, right? So you have to take a lot of it with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
we got to be careful with those sports references because some people might not get them. Just so
yeah.
That's
what's a good analogy? Shots on goal. Sorry, I'll think about that.
I'm just kidding. Just something I saw on Twitter yesterday. So of course it's relevant.
No way.
I want everybody to.
Sorry.
Yes, I know
to
exactly what Hunter is referencing.
Someone
I know
was
exactly.
Okay.
Analogies
All right.
because it's like
Next tweet. Nope, we're gonna move on.
Oh no, man.
Moving on.
I got one more thing on this that I was gonna ask Darren.
Okay.
I tell Hunter all the time. It's like something that I have to balance with is that I've heard a great quote. I think it was in a book that I read that just said like the CEO doesn't have an opinion, and it's just something that you have to be like cognizant of as the CEO that when you say something, it's not just like a idea that somebody is going to toss around. It came from the CEO, so now it sounds like a directive, right? And I think that power probably exudes to what this tweet is saying, especially with like influencers and people in the network who are higher up. When you get advice from them, it's not really advice. It just sounds like an order because you should listen to them. How do you balance that, like at the company? When you have feedback or you have changes or you want to take the company in a new direction, and maybe it's just an idea that you have no idea if it's the right way to do it. How do you manage that expectation with your team?
That's a fantastic question. It's something I'm still, learning. So I'm still evolving. I'm getting better. I think I am getting better. I used to early on. I used to share a lot of feedback, a lot of thoughts, a lot of things that may be fleeting, just sort of coming through my mind, and there's a certain cost to that, as you mentioned. It does matter when as a CEO when you say something. It matters a little differently than when somebody else might say it. At the end of the day, you've got to build, I think, the right relationships with the really solid relationship with your team, so that there's trust, there's understanding, and you got to let folks in. You got to let them know how you process information. Often, what I do is I preface things. I say, "So this is not what we're doing, right? Or this is not something that I make it very clear." And this is what I'm thinking about, or this is what I'm processing, and I'm doing this in real time. And I just want, there's no takeaways, there's no decisions here, like that. That's how I will do it often,
That's
especially
smart.
if it's more broadly shared. Brooke and I talk about this all the time. Brooke and I, we're peers. We've been in the trenches building work from, and one of the things that we are working to do is to evolve also as leaders and understand that when she and I have banter, when she and I have, certain types of conversations, there's so much context that goes into that. There's so much history. There's so much understanding of each other. And, but that's not always the case, especially for new teammates. And that's something we want to be very aware of, because at the end of the day, we want to build something remarkable with remarkable people through a remarkable culture. You have to be intentional around, in order to do that. You can't just sort of be free, and don't understand the impact of some of the things that are happening. And so we are trying to evolve on that as well. But yeah, I try to be very intentional and preface things.
Yeah, no, I think that's super smart.
Actually, I'll add one last thing. I had a good friend of mine who, when I first started work for him, he said to me, and he'd been a CEO before, and this was my first time being a CEO work from him, and he said, you can change your mind. That's fine. That's okay. You should be doing it. You can change direction for the company. You should, but you can't do it often. You got to understand that there's a cost to that, right? Like you have to wait. You have to see things through. You have to let things go full cycle, because it's not just you. It's never going to be just you. And so you might see it, you might feel it, you might understand the urgencies and everything, but you still have to understand that there's a cycle that needs to be sought, that needs to be completed in order for everybody else to be able to be impacted in the right ways. And I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, no, that's super good feedback. I really like that. I think it's hard as a CEO to know and commit to something when you just have that unknown at the end. You're like, I don't know if it's going to work out. So if you change soon enough, it's almost like protecting your own yourself,
Yeah,
right? Because then
totally.
you can't see
Yeah.
failure. I see that a lot with CEOs, is that fear of failure. And I think you don't learn if you don't ship. You don't learn if you don't fail. All right, Hunter, you said this last tweet is yours, so go ahead.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
What's interesting about this?
No idea what it means.
All right. So Amazon is skills, Google is actions, Samsung is capsules. I actually don't know what that part means.
It's their Bixby thing.
Apple. Okay. And then Apple is capabilities. So like what you were just talking about, right? Like Apple can now tie in Siri to some other things without needing a device. Like it unlocks a bunch of other capabilities. And I've been doing some other podcasts lately, and a lot of things that just keep coming up is like, they keep asking me like, why are you so excited about AirPods? And to me, it's very easy. It's because now AirPods unlock a whole slew of opportunities for developers. That's actually why I made AirPods as an app store back in the day, was because I knew at some point they needed to have some sort of place to discover these apps that are made specifically for AirPods. And that wasn't possible up until, what was it, Monday, when they announced that AirPods are going to have their own API. And so I just think that Apple is really good at taking what everybody else is sort of doing and then just making the best version of it and then just making it mainstream. So I'm just really excited for all the opportunities. At least, I mean, I'm very selfish in this way, but I think that it's going to unlock a lot of opportunities for Yak, which then unlocks a whole bunch of opportunities in the workplace. So that's why I picked this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always point out, I mean, it's like a joke at this point how much Apple waits for everybody else to do like okay jobs at something, and then eventually just like blows it out of the water with this amazing, version of it. I don't know. Apple already has shortcuts. That's what they call Siri shortcuts now. I feel like that's probably what they'll keep the branding of. But I do like this concept of capabilities. Like, what does Siri, what does AI, what does audio unlock that you couldn't previously do? I mean, I didn't even know. I had to Google it. I didn't know that Samsung capsules was a thing. What an awful branded version. Like, no one. That sounds like taking medicine.
What is that?
It's their stupid Bixby marketplace. Bixby. Do you even know what Bixby is, Darren?
I've never heard of it until now.
That's their Siri, their Google Assistant. Like, it's bad.
I've never even heard of it. That's crazy.
Eli at The Verge always says that it's a small terrier with shoes. It just sounds like a butler dog or something. Like, Bixby, get over here.
Bixby, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know who named it capsules, but I do think that this is interesting. I think prior to now, maybe we've always thought of these, Alexa skills as something that like was relegated to the home and was on a device that's plugged into a wall somewhere that you think that runs your lights. And I think like even the use case that you said earlier, where you just, you talk to Siri when you had the phone in the other room, but you just had your AirPods. I think that's very interesting as you're walking down the street and your phone alerts you that a car horn, is honking at you as you listen to music, because now that feature is unlocked because it can recognize sounds. Or, there's like just so much stuff that I think that always on audio platform, can unlock. And I think we talked earlier in the episode just about like loneliness and isolation, this ability to kind of have people with you all the time. Clubhouse obviously being a good example of why people are, yearning for that kind of community aspect. I think one of the big things they've shown there is folks that are just leaving Clubhouse open for like 6 hours while they cook. Like, they'll just be sitting there, Clubhouse is open on their phone, sitting on the countertop. They have AirPods in, and they're just listening to people talk. And I think the fact that it's live versus like a pre-recorded podcast somehow gives people this sense of warmth and involvement, even if they're not talking themselves. They just happen to know that the people on the other side of the line are live doing this right now. And yeah, I definitely think that the idea of AirPods as a platform, starts to unlock that, that idea of what it would be like to have always on audio channel. I think that's how we started Yak. And Jordan, you probably remember that. We're in a hotel room.
It was impossible for you and I to talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'll be cool to see how Apple, builds that platform forward, and how those accessibility things, obviously help people on the accessibility side, but maybe just start become features of themselves, the ability to recognize sounds and have triggered actions and things. I think the sound recognition, I think that'll really take off. The always on audio, I mean, sure, Clubhouse exists, but I don't see that being like a long-term thing. But like the idea of being able to recognize like a police siren or like my smoke alarm or like water running, I think that stuff is really, really useful. Well, I think it's a quarantine thing. I don't know, Darren, like how much do you think you guys will have to pivot and change for quarantine, and how much do you think that will stick, or you will end up going back to something pre-COVID?
Well, for us, what we're doing now, what we're starting to get out there into the world it was already something that we were working on. It was already where we were headed in many ways. But we just accelerated things because of the change around us. It became clear to us that our biggest impact was going to be, and our most timely impact was going to be in helping to connect people in these ways, right? I'm all about drawing new connections between things, and I think that the thing that I've learned time and time again with Work From and building this large community, and talking to literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people who work this way, who work remotely, is that connectivity is key, and so we were already doing a lot of these things. We decided to accelerate the timeline, and then we have this place vector. We have this ability to understand place like few others, and we can bring that into the connectivity matrix. We understand where people go, when they go there, where they go next, who else goes there, how often they go there. We know the radius in which they will travel to go to the next place. Like, we understand place, and we know why even they go to those places, when they go, what they're how they're feeling. What productivity boost they're looking to get when they go there, or maybe it's more privacy. We understand all these things, so this will help us. This will only help us round out the ability to connect people in the most interesting and, we think, meaningful ways. So it's part of a larger experience, but we've really needed to bring that to the forefront. For so long, place has been the focus, and now it's time for. We've done an amazing job. We have something there that nobody else has. And it will allow us to bring things, to the forefront, meaningful things to the forefront for people that nobody else can.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Nice.
you would say that you guys are in it for the long haul then?
Always have been. Yeah.
Always has been.
Always
That's
have
good
been.
to hear.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
love that.
Mission vision doesn't change. It's just the timeline that changed. Yeah, timeline change.
And events cause pivots, and we got to react to that. But
Yeah.
I think it's good to hear that you guys are, you have a long-term goal and you're hitting those goals and you're reacting appropriately to the climate around them. But awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been great. Awesome.
We don't have to stop.
insights. Love
We
talking
keep going,
to
right?
We can keep going. We'll just have you back on another episode, man.
We just talked about community and connectivity and how important it is. I figured we should just keep going, right? 6 hours of this, we should be
always
able to.
always on podcast.
Yeah, what's up with that? Let's break some ground here. Let's do some new stuff. Always on podcast.
Well, we will just instead have you plug everything. Tell people where they can find you, where they can sign up for Work From, how they can join your Slack community, all that good stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely join us. Become part of our community. Help us build out this future. Help us accomplish this vision for all of us. For remote kind, we like to say it. Go to workfrom.co. That's how you'll find us and connect with us there. Create an account. Start building your network remotely. It's one of the best things you can do if you're new to remote or if you've been working remotely for a long time. If you want to join our Slack community, you can go to remoteworkslack.com. There's a front door to our Slack community there that's new. Yeah, thank you. So definitely go to that. And if you want to follow us at Work From on most of the things, all the things, and then excuse me personally, at Darren Buckner on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can find me on Yak at some point soon. I'll have a front door, I imagine, to Yak.
Yes,
but I don't know what it is quite yet, but you'll find me there at some point.
We're working on a landing page for you right now that you'll be able to send out, and anybody will be able to join a Work From Yak group. So
hey, I love it.
Actively being worked on. Well, awesome, man. Yeah. I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and turn our video off here. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm going to play us out with some music.
Pleasure was all mine.